You're good.
I'll request to speak. Okay. I don't know if traffic thing is coming out. I got a statement from the guy that manages the River Shore restaurants, but there's no traffic problem he's aware of.
Welcome to the June meeting of the Citizen Involvement Council. We have, for the most part, 2 representatives from every neighborhood in the city of Oregon City here to share information from their neighborhoods, and for the city and other projects to share with them so they can take back to their neighborhoods. We have a roll call coming up, and then once we've done that, I'd like to just have the audience introduce themselves as well. So we'll start with the roll call.
Tony, hope if I turn this on. Okay. Tony from Barkley Hills is excused. Michael Berman.
Here.
Paul Edgar.
Here.
Amber Holbeck. Here. Kathy Hogan is excused. Tom O'Brien.
Here.
Steve Anderson.
Here.
Faith Leith. Here. Alice Watts.
Here.
Damon Mabey.
Here.
Bob LaSalle.
Here.
Steve Van Haverbeek.
Here.
Diane McKnight and Eileen Olson are excused. Marianne Jensen. Here. Did I see you? I hear you. Okay. There you are. I just want to see you. Ingrid Rickenbach. Todd Last.
Here.
You did call Brian because he's not an official crowd yet. Okay. Now, we'd like for our audience, if we could start over in this corner and then move that way. I'd like to know. Oh, okay, excuse me.
Oh.
We have someone sitting right here with us that is a new neighborhood but unofficial at this point. I assume you'll be official next meeting?
Yes. The only thing that isn't official is we haven't submitted a letter detailing who our members are going to be. That's the only thing in the way. We're all set up and officially accepted by the city. So.
And your neighborhood name
is Two Rivers Neighborhood Association.
Mm-hmm. And your name is?
Brian Boyce, and our vice chair is, I keep thinking of Brian Grant, who manages River Shore Restaurant. But due to that job, he's not here tonight.
So you're the sole representative for
as
Two
of
Rivers.
tonight, yes.
Great. Well, welcome. It's wonderful to have you.
Yeah,
now
you.
we can start in the back.
Hi, my name is Ryan Farncombe. I'm a graduate student at Portland State University.
Good evening. My name is Lloyd Purdy, and I'll present to you with Ryan and then with Cheryl in a couple minutes.
Excellent.
From downtown Oregon City.
I'm Cheryl Snow. I'm the Executive Director of Clackamas County Arts Alliance.
I'm Margie Hughes, and I actually live in Hillendale, but I'm filling in as actually Secretary of Two Rivers Neighborhood Association.
Good evening. I'm Randy Tyler. I'm part of a team that's putting the Cove project together.
Tom Guile, resident.
And former chair of the CIC.
Howard Post Kanema.
Jim and Carol Miller, South End residents.
We'll chase Blaine around.
Hi, Blaine Meyer.
Thank you. Now, just for the audience's information, if you do feel that you want to make a comment about anything on the agenda, there's a card on the back table that you should fill out and hand to Katie, and then she will get you in. But ordinarily, the audience does not participate unless they do that and let us know that they want to. Katie, you have the library as first. Did you want to make that presentation first? Or do you want to go in a different order than that?
It doesn't matter. I can go. I think it's the 5 to 9 first. Do we want to do that first?
Sure.
Okay, let's go ahead and do them first and get that going.
Oh, okay.
Give an introduction to you.
Sure.
Good evening. So the mic's working well. You can hear me? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Happy to join you all here tonight As I said, I'm Lloyd Purdy. I'm the director of the Downtown Revitalization Program, and I'm working with a great team. And you're seeing one of 6 graduate students who have been working with us for the last 4 months on a project called Live It Up Downtown. What we've done is we're trying to explore how you would go about reintroducing residential capacity back into a 169-year-old downtown, a downtown that doesn't have anybody living in it currently. So Ryan Farncombe is the project leader, working with 5 other great graduate students from PSU. They had about 40 different projects from around the region to choose from, and this group chose the Oregon City project, a range of reasons, but probably because also they thought there'd be hopefully accurately a great learning experience. So Ryan's going to give you a very brief overview, and I realize we have probably less than 10 minutes, so it'll be quick.
Thanks, Lloyd. As Lloyd said, I'm Ryan Farncombe. I'm sorry the rest of the group couldn't be here tonight. But we've been working with Lloyd for several months on this project, and it's really about the introduction of housing into downtown Oregon City. This is what we're defining as downtown. This is what we've been studying for the last 5 months, so basically 5th to 15th. But what the greater problem is that downtown shuts down at the end of each business day at 5 p.m. Because there are no people living downtown. It empties out. So the ultimate goal is to make downtown what they call the 18-hour downtown, where there's activity and business for a much greater portion of the day. And one way you can accomplish that is by getting people to actually live there. There's only a few people living in downtown right now. I think there's 4 units total. So we've been looking at strategies and for reintroducing residential into downtown. So we're calling it a roadmap to residential development. And our ultimate goal, which we're going to have actually in a few days and present to the City Commission, is a list of actionable recommendations that Lloyd can take as part of Main Street Oregon City, that the city could take, and others to help this effort along. So really the goal is to spur private development and create a more livable and dynamic downtown. I think I've said downtown about 47 times. I apologize. So what we've been up to the last few months is we've been looking at existing conditions, what's going on the ground now, what's up with city code. We've looked at what other cities around the Northwest have done, including Hillsborough, Bellingham, Gresham, a lot of different cities with historic downtowns who have made similar efforts. There's kind of 2 tracks to this project. One track is the livability aspect, what makes people want to live somewhere, and the other track is development, a market analysis, what would make a developer interested in producing a project. So we will also talk to some local developers, architects, planners, people at Metro, a lot of folks about the potential market for housing. And a big piece of our project's been evaluating the opportunities and constraints as they pertain to those 2 tracks. We've also done some fairly extensive public outreach. We had an electronic survey. I bet a lot of you took that. We've talked to a lot of people in town, including many in this room. And we also participated in a farmer's market, and we had an open house at Nebbiolo, which is just opened this week, incidentally. For our survey, we got some really good information about livability and what people like about downtown. Would they be interested in living downtown? Those kind of things. Here's an example of some of the questions and answers we got. So one of the things we found that was pretty universal is people really enjoy the historic character of Oregon City. That's very important to them, and so that will be key in any development that occurs in downtown. Here's a graphical depiction of some of the opportunities and constraints as we've seen them so far. One that we've talked about before is train noise. With trains blowing their whistles, that's an impediment to development. People don't necessarily want to live next to a train blowing its whistle at all hours of the day. Another problem we've looked at is the McLaughlin Boulevard. It kind of cuts off downtown from, it doesn't kind of cut off downtown, it does cut off downtown from the waterfront. Even though improvements have been made on the north end, more can be done to improve that connection and really capitalize on the city's access to the waterfront and the Willamette Falls. And Willamette Falls, I think rightly judged as an opportunity, as with the Blue Heron site, which is a separate project, but also will definitely impact what happens in the rest of downtown. And And finally, we think some of the really interesting things about Oregon City, like the municipal elevator, the Arch Bridge, those kind of cool, quirky things really add are really a potential opportunity that would make people want to live and develop in Oregon City. Here's a few of the, on the other side of things, what's going on as far as development. One of the big problems is, since there is nobody living in downtown, there are no, they're called market comparables. If a developer was trying to develop a project, he or she wants to know what sort of rents they could get on that project, and there's nobody living in downtown, so they just don't know, and so it's an unproven market. And that's very risky, and until someone proves the market, it'll be difficult for anyone to develop further. So that's one of the main constraints we see. But on the other hand, the city does lie in an urban, or the downtown does lie in an urban rural area, which provides opportunities to improve urban design downtown, things like that would spur development. So those are just a few of the opportunities and constraints we've looked at. I don't know if you have any questions or comments for me, but I'd love to hear them.
What are you looking for from us?
Oh, I wanted to come here tonight just to let you know what our group is up to and some of the things we found in relation to the opportunities and constraints in downtown Oregon City.
Is it possible to get a copy of what you're presenting?
Yeah, absolutely. I can email Lloyd our final work product, which will be produced. We'll have it actually ready next week, and then that can be forwarded to everybody.
I expect we'll have digital versions of it on the website.
Oh, here.
If not residential, how about mixed-use residential, where you have commercial paired with residential?
I think that's probably what would happen is you'd have ground floor commercial with people living upstairs.
There's market for that?
We think so. I think with some a little bit of work, yeah, I think we would think the market would be there.
It appears, in fact, that the banks actually like that scenario. The financiers like the commercial on the first floor with residential above. So realistically, Steve, your idea is the model, not just straight residential, but the mixed use commercial with residential above.
Is it the thought process that without residents downtown, our new Main Street, which is seemingly beginning to flourish, will not make its maximum potential without residents?
I think that's exactly what it is. Is that with people, Lloyd's done a great job of bringing new businesses into downtown and getting the money to fix Main Street. But the next step to really make it like I said, an 18-hour place that's always happening and really supports business, is to get people living downtown. That creates a captive audience for those businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, Damon?
I just find it ironic, the whole train whistle problem, because the reason why trains blow their whistles is because residents complained that the trains snuck up on them. And so they created a law that requires them to now blow their whistles at intersections. So it's like, gee, you got what you asked for, what's the problem? So, but I live up by the hospital, and I can hear them when they blow, but it's there's some ideas of making it a silent corridor and all that, and I think until Singer Hill gets 7th Street Singer Hill gets some sort of significant signal improvement, it's going to be fairly difficult to do, because that's kind of the one point where residents touch the railroad. Other than that, it's elevated or held back. But I think if you do look at going forward with any sort of petition or request, definitely speak with the McLaughlin neighborhood, and particularly the people on the bluff, because I know that they would greatly appreciate a reduction. And that's you have businesses on the downtown side, and you have residents on the uptown side, and so that's a government tends to listen when both parties agree with the message. So.
I've got
go
one
ahead.
other one. Did you look at all at possible interactions with the Blue Heron redevelopment, or is that too far down the line for what you're doing?
We didn't delve too much into the Blue Heron development. I think it is a bit too far down the line, and I think our assessment is that it will only help the situation in downtown, regardless of what happens there. But I don't think we knew enough about what would happen to really make an assessment of how it affected this project in downtown as we've been analyzing it.
Add to that, the scope, the original scope of the project was downtown from 5th to 15th, and how do we reintroduce residential, probably through things like adaptive reuse or infilling on a vacant lot, and the mill site will be developed probably in a different scenario than what we see with our old downtown buildings. So they were tackling a more challenging problem. Throw enough money at it, and you can have residential anywhere, including the Blue Heron Mill site. How do you do residential where you still have some historic buildings, a limited footprint with the bluff and the waterfront? So they had a more challenging problem, in fact.
Okay,
John?
thank you.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this or we're aware of this, but the city right now is looking at reducing its parking standards for the downtown area to kind of allow developers to submit development proposals that could be approved with less parking in the downtown area, on-site parking. So it's an interesting concept. I've kind of been hearing lots of discussion about that. What would your take be on that? Given kind of the constraints that we have, does that make those less marketable, more marketable? Does it make more possible, less possible?
Yeah, I think one thing, I didn't mention parking. We have heard a lot about parking, for sure. But I think it comes down to maybe what lenders are willing to lend to, because lenders are really looking to see that parking, I think we're realistic that any new residents in downtown are going to be driving for a lot of their needs. There just isn't the high-quality transit, that kind of thing that need to get around. So I think if the lenders are okay with, maybe a half a parking stall per unit, then that's what matters.
How do you drive half a car?
Seen those little tiny short ones?
The smart car.
In this case,
Metro had one.
the market. In this case, the market drives. At a certain point, you can't plan for it or policy for it. You have to find a way to let the market, the private market, the developer, figure out how many buildings and parking spaces they need to make the project work. So that's another hurdle they came up against, is working with the private sector.
Okay.
So it should be more driven by the development community than the city code.
And
But I think that flexibility, though, is
does that.
key. So
reducing those standards allows the private market to influence what happens, and doesn't set a ceiling set by policymakers. So it might be the flexibility that's needed. Might be.
Yeah. I was going to say what the development community wants has certainly been a moving target the last few years, and I'll probably continue that way for a couple of years until things really take off again.
Todd?
What a great segue. I was just going to comment, I think you should really focus on the parking requirements, because I know myself and a lot of other people, they don't go downtown because it's such a pain to find a parking space. And the way the streets are organized, it's really hard if you don't find that space to kind of zoom around. And anyone that's gone to jury duty knows, what an issue it is. And it's really surprised me when I heard the city was considering minimizing the number of spaces, when I see that as one of the issues that we have into bringing people downtown.
Amber?
Thank you. I was hoping you might be able to comment on, as in terms of an opportunity, explain the no maximum floor area ratio, and then what are some of the rules that developers and owners are unclear on?
So with the more maximum floor area ratio, that's an opportunity because a lot of times development is restricted. So if it's a FAR of 2.0, you can only build 2 stories. Essentially, you can only build 2 stories on a lot of a given size. So it allows, even though there are height limits downtown, it allows developers to have a lot of flexibility in how much space they build up. And as far as property owners, developers not clearing the rules, that was something that came out of our interviews with a lot of development and professionals and property owners. As in there was no easy guidebook for them necessarily on what they need to do to get a development from A to B. So actually one of our recommendations that we're going to be presenting to the city, I think, is that the city develop a toolkit, a developer toolkit, or a kind of a white paper on this is how you apply for a permit to build a mixed use development. That's something the city of Portland has done, and it's been very handy to people. So
Something that can be replicated from other examples pretty successfully.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 3 people wanting to question, and I want to allow all 3 of you, and Now we have 4. Okay, we're going to stop with you, Steve, when we get back, when we get to yours. Yours is the last question. Next is Paul.
One of the pluses and minuses of the courthouse and the implications that the courthouse has on downtown with these really high volume of people coming and going, and it's a little bit of its parking, because if you have a big problem, people going to jury duty or people trying to get to the courthouse just because the courthouse is there, and we have hundreds of thousands of people that are drawn into downtown Oregon City as a direct result of the courthouse. And when I talked to Chief Judge of the courthouse, he considered parking his number one really kind of problem associated with these people coming to downtown. And if we're not addressing this, and in fact, if we don't address it because of the fact that we have such a high level of people that are handicapped, and we have no handicap parking, and we're the only city in metropolitan Oregon where we do not really provide handicap parking free, and therefore we have the impact of these people by court order coming into Oregon City or needs, and we don't address it whatsoever. What do we do and how we do it? But they can't go 100 feet, a lot of them. Some can go maybe 300 feet. But if you take that parameter around the courthouse, we got problems, and how do you see that impacts all of this?
I think the courthouse is definitely an interesting issue. On one hand, maybe Lloyd attest to this, that it does bring a lot of people into downtown that also are going to businesses in downtown. On the other hand, like I say, it does cause a parking issue. So what we've been looking at is, because this parking problem is difficult to solve without a lot of money. I mean, one of the options to solve this is, for instance, some of the lots north of 15th Street or 10th Street are underutilized right now. Is there a shuttle that could exist to get people from that parking lot to the courthouse, something like that would free up downtown parking? So I think parking management of the existing parking supply could help in the situation, but there is no silver bullet for the problem, for sure.
The nice thing about residential is it probably, because it's driven by financing, probably adds off-street capacity. Chance for people to park at night who live here, and opens up spaces off-street by day. So potentially residential solves many problems, including the integrated with parking, solves that challenge as well. I know we're really short on time.
Yeah, well, I want 3 more questions, please. Tom Guile from our
Just
audience.
a minor question. I happened to be downtown last week, and I was surprised. I keep hearing about all these businesses that are going onto Main Street, but I was looking at all the for lease for shops, and I noticed that back in February. And it's interesting because I called on one of the shops in February considering opening a business in downtown Main Street, never got a call back. So last Thursday when I was down picking up some programs at the print shop, called the number again, no call back. Because each time they say, well, somebody will get back to you, but no one ever calls you back on some of those lease ones. That's not Lloyd's problem or anybody else's, but I keep wondering if Lloyd or anybody has kept a record of how long do businesses actually stay open on Main Street in that area. Because I've written stories like the wine shop's gone now, and several along Main Street, they seem to open up and close, and then another one moves in and then closes. And I'm wondering what the standard is of how long businesses stay open. I went to Munoz, so that was closed, I guess, a while back, but I was looking at shops in that area. Just wondering if there's a record of how long businesses survive down there.
Since 1920, Tom.
Yeah, for you. That's the beer. I was just wondering if there was some kind of a record of, because that's probably a focal point for businesses and others, is how long what my opportunities for business are, because if people are opening and closing quickly, maybe there's just not the business. I'm just wondering.
Are there any stats on that, on what the average longevity of a new business is?
Sure.
Okay.
City business licenses track that. We have a list for downtown as well. Yeah.
Okay.
But do we know how long they stay open, Lloyd? I'm just asking.
You don't have those numbers
and I don't have them right in front of me.
Okay.
I was just wondering.
Question about specific business, give me a call, we can talk.
Well, it's not a specific business. I was just surprised when I went down to the print shop down there, and they said, yeah, it's a lot of A lot of people are closing up down here. They're not getting the business. But
Do you want to talk to Lloyd after the meeting then?
well, it wasn't
or another
important. It
time?
just when I saw this come up tonight, I thought I'd
Yeah.
ask because I was surprised myself when I saw that many.
Well, I
peace
guess we
signs.
can't get that answer tonight.
I guess
so.
not. Thanks.
Damon?
Well, one's a comment and the other's a question. First, the comment is the whole parking thing's a boogeyman. Yes, at 10 o'clock and at 2 o'clock, parking's tight. But we're talking about 6 o'clock. There are 5 bazillion empty spaces in front of every business at 6 o'clock. So to be worried about parking structures and parking and handicap and all that, it's all BS. At 6 o'clock, you can park wherever you want. And that's the message I think you need to get out, is that Oregon City's open after 5. We don't roll up the streets. And I think if you market that, that'll help a lot of the restaurants and the bars and some of the shops might stay open. They won't open at 9. They'll open at 11 and stay open till 7 and that sort of stuff, which is a dynamic. But the question I do have is how much of an impediment, and this might just be straight, it's up to the developers kind of an answer, but how much of an impediment is the historic buildings that have been remodeled and modeled and remodeled and, to try to get residential in there? There's a certain look they have to have, and, they've gone from, apartment buildings to storerooms to who knows what rooms, and now we're trying to turn them back into apartment buildings. Is that an issue, or is the developers will just deal with it when the time comes?
I think it is an issue. It depends, some of the buildings may need seismic retrofits, fire code retrofits, things like that to have people actually live in them. So it comes down to the cost. What would it cost to do that, and if it makes sense for a developer to do that. And it's probably close to what it would cost to construct a new development. So I think it's really close.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and last question, Steve.
Thank you. In your studies of comparable cities that have been successful in establishing residents in downtown areas, what are they doing that we're not?
That is a very good question. We've looked. Part of the difficulty in comparing Oregon City to other cities is each city's got a unique circumstance. But I think there's a range of things that we've looked at that other cities have done that could be done here, including financial incentives, streetscape improvements that have already occurred, things like that. Recruitment of a really go-getter developer, which we've seen in a couple communities where someone's actually gone out and said, "Hey, will you come build this project here? We're pretty sure it'll work," and someone took the risk on it. There's a bit of luck involved with that, but that's the kind of thing we've seen happen. So I don't think there's any one. I think it's a mix of things that we've seen that could be applied here.
Is there a profile of a particular type of person that would live downtown?
In our survey, we asked some demographic information and also, would you be interested in living downtown? And so I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but we have information about what sort of age bracket and income level and what kind of person would be interested in living in downtown Oregon City. But I'm sorry, I don't remember what those are off the top of my head.
Okay, Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move right into Lloyd's presentation.
No, that's mine. Sorry. You guys know this. Okay. Great. Me again. I'm very happy, pleased to be joined here with Cheryl Snow, Director of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance. I would say next, along with the City of Oregon City, so the city, the Arts Alliance, and downtown, that's the three main partners in this project we've called Illuminate Oregon City, which is a grant funded by the National Endowment for the Arts to use projected light to illuminate the municipal elevator. This picture was taken by Devin Conroy Groves. You look at that, you'd say, well, why does this elevator need to be lit at all? It's beautiful.
That's
There's photo magic going on in this photo. It doesn't always look this good. we'll carry forward and give you an outline on what this project is all about. We did find National Endowment for the Arts funding, one of only 80 projects in the country that were funded last year, to bring in an artist who is experienced in community building, placemaking, working with the public. In fact, this artist that we've hired showed up in town this morning and will be here all week for her first visit. You can meet with her at the top of the elevator Saturday at 2 p.m. or at the Caulfield House around 5:30 for a get-to-know-you meeting, a Meet the Artist meeting. It's her job to help us figure out what to do with this elevator. There's the entry tunnel, the column, and the observation deck, and the cap. And the good news is, along with this art project, through the support of John Lewis and Public Works, we're going to see a new and improved daytime look of the elevator. Full painting. The column will be white. I'm going to explain this to you because I don't have the graphic. The column will be white. The observation deck will be silver. The entry tunnel will be silver. New accent lighting that will complement the projected light exhibit from the artist we've hired, a woman named Tiffany Carbonell. Signage. And signage, more appropriate mid-century modern signage. All the treatments to the elevator, the paint, the signage, the lighting, are consistent with the historic integrity of this elevator. And it's my understanding the city will be placing this on the historic register. So we wanted to do everything that would complement, in fact, not contradict the mid-century modern structure. So that kind of gave us a box to work in. Just so happened that box is really works well with this projected light idea, setting up projectors and projecting onto the elevator. So the first step was to find this expert, and we did. We had 40
plus 42, I think, candidates have responded to our call. We did a national call for an expert in the field of illumination, which has become, over the last decade, a more commonly used tool in the field of public art. So we were amazed and delighted at the array of responses we had from a field of 12 finalists. Semi-finalists, we narrowed to a group of 3, interviewed all 3, and selected Ms. Tiffany Carbonell, who has been working nationally and internationally in projected light.
Prague, South Africa, and even Kansas, all over the. She's from Kansas. This is an example of some of her work. This is, I think it's the port of Singapore or Taiwan or some industrial port, and she gathered that video and she's reprojecting it onto the side of this building. Her technique includes mapping the exact outline of the building. That will come in very handy at the municipal elevator. It's got a very unique shape. Her approach will be to map it directly, so there won't be the bleed over you would see. It's not just projecting a movie onto the side of a building. This is formatted just to fit the elevator. And we don't know what she's going to present on our elevator. She's in town and will be repeatedly in town visiting, in fact, living here for
3 weeks.
3 weeks this summer.
If I can, Lloyd, just say that one of the reasons the selection committee was so enthusiastic about Tiffany is that virtually all of her prior work has focused both on rivers and on historic structures. She was just bubbling over with excitement about the prospect of working on this wholly unique structure that we know and love as the municipal elevator. So her prior interests and her proven skills in what she's done in the past convinced us that she was the right person to work with our iconic building.
Here's a concept of what she could do. She's taken on my left, it's an industrial scene mapped to the elevator. On the right, it's actually a waterfall. So her experience is gathering video and then reprojecting it, gathering images and content that's important to the community she's working in. We don't know if the cap will be lighted because of the technological challenges, but we're pretty certain the column and the observation deck will have that projection on it. That'll leave the entry tunnel updated with the city's painting and lighting scheme.
And let's be clear that it won't it certainly won't be what we're looking at here, because this is what Tiffany provided for us in her interview session, and she stressed that all of her work is based on a deep and wide investigative process working with community. So again, that begins this week, as Lloyd said. So we don't know what she's going to come up with, nor does she, until she has the opportunity to survey the public, meet people, and visit.
I'm going to move forward much quickly now because we're taking a lot of your time. We've got a lot to do. Second phase was to do some background work, gather all the partners. Third phase we're completing now. We, meaning working with the city, an architecture firm, Dow Architecture, has made recommendations to the City Council and the Historic Review Board of what the elevator will look like by day. The guidelines were a dynamic 24-hour appearance. The thing's got to look good all day long, not just when we're projecting images onto it. It has to be consistent with the mid-century modern historic structure. It has to be a canvas suitable to receive this projected light, and it's got to come in under budget. Isn't that great? More steps to follow all through the rest of this year, 2013. I'm expecting that the projected light art exhibit will probably go live, so to speak, early January. And then it'll go every night for the year. And then we can decide what to do with it next. National Endowment for the Arts funded. It's not a temporary project. It has to be up for at least a year. And after that, we can decide if we want to continue it or do something different. So that's kind of exciting. It does build community, public input. It uses the iconic elevator as something that we should be proud of. We share the Willamette Falls with the rest of the country. That's the end of the Oregon Trail. We share the Oregon City West Lynn Bridge with West Lynn. Our elevator is our elevator. This is a chance to own it and celebrate it. A lot of partners. Metro is a partner. PSU will be coming to town as a partner. Main Street Oregon City, the Arts Alliance, National Endowment for the Arts, the City of Oregon City. That, I think, wraps up the presentation. We can probably take a couple of questions at your discretion.
Todd?
I just have a question. Is on the projected art, is this like a slide projector that's doing still images, or is it like a video?
It's animated. It could very well be animation of still, but more likely, it will be video.
That type of industrial
I know.
projector.
I'm worried about the accidents that might occur when everyone starts staring at the elevator. That bridge is not very wide. You could easily go right off into the river.
That is one of her challenges, for sure.
Yeah.
Seriously, it is.
I would think.
As well, because the elevator has such high visibility from I-205. So, we have joked about that too, but she's quite aware that there is, as well as an attraction, we don't want to cause a hazard.
Good.
Could you go back one more slide? Thanks.
Fill out the card.
I don't have a question.
Did you get the slide you wanted?
Yeah.
Okay. Katie?
Now, you said it wasn't going to be a wraparound type. It wasn't going to wrap around the shaft or anything. So, is it going to be seen from different angles, or are you only going to be able to see it from straight on?
You'll be able to see it certainly from head on, but from the sides. It won't wrap around three-dimensionally because of the sighting of the projectors. We're not quite sure exactly where they'll be, but they'll be focused on this face primarily. We're also quite concerned, and again, another challenge of the artist is we don't want to have light spill over that will intrude up on the bluff and the hill. This will be an asset and attraction when it's completed. It will not be a hazard or a cause for irritated citizen phone calls to Katie and to John. But
giving them your number.
Yeah. Then we're really going to work very hard at making sure that this is only an asset and attraction. So yeah, she's quite aware of those dilemmas. But based on the fact of how the elevator is situated, it's really quite difficult to view it in any way other than from here or coming up and down Railroad Avenue. So.
This is probably a good guesstimate of the right viewing distance. Every piece of artwork has a viewing distance.
Mhm.
Somewhere along the 7th for the bridge to the entry tunnel is probably where we would expect people to actually view the exhibit.
Who is the approving authority on something like this? I'm just thinking it's a similar distraction, despite that it's going to be beautiful, but a similar distraction to those video signs that you see in Portland that have been so controversial because of their distracting qualities.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ODOT, or who ultimately approves the design and determines whether it's a safety hazard or not?
Well, that's a really good question. ODOT is not, we're not within the governance guidelines for ODOT. There have been issues in various parts of the country with the very situation that you just present, those advertising signs. This will not have that character at all. They won't, for example, have, it won't have high resolution text that will be displayed in a three-dimensional way. The text is primarily the largest distraction that people find with advertising signs. So we don't anticipate that level of barrier or of distraction. But other than that, I don't know that we have any higher authority other than our internal art selection committee that will be reviewing every step of the process with Tiffany as she moves forward with her design.
That's one of the biggest challenges. Ultimately, this is art.
Mm-hmm.
You might not think it's beautiful, you might not like it, but it's still art.
Eyes of the beholder.
Okay. Are there any other questions before we let these two people go? Lloyd, will you also tell Brian, I kind of dismissed him quickly, would you tell him that we enjoyed his presentation? I think it was evident we had so many questions because people were very interested.
Thank you for...
So
Yeah.
I apologize
Seriously.
for not saying that before he left.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. That's exactly why I was here.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for being
Welcome. Thank
cognizant
you.
of the time.
And before you go, what the Clackamas? Tell me again what you were. So
We are the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and we function, I guess the one way to think of our work is we're the Arts Commission for all of Clackamas County. So our staff works with municipalities all over, public art and resources, and a wide variety of other things related to art and culture.
And you're located where?
We're located in Oregon City.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We have Cheryl to thank for the Lee Kelly sculpture that's at the base of 7th, the Willamette Compass outside the courthouse, all the recent art projects we've seen downtown. We've been partners with Cheryl and the Arts Alliance on. Wonderful. Great partner to have.
And that wonderful piece right out here in City Hall.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's nice
Thank
to meet you.
Thanks very much.
Uh-huh. Okay, Katie is handing out some little postcards that relate to our next presentation. She's stepping in for Maureen Cole, who couldn't be here tonight.
Thank you, Chair and members of the CIC. I'm Katie Riggs, and as it was presented, I'm here for Maureen Cole, the Library Director. And Maureen wanted to make sure, and everyone of Friends of the Library or part of the library and part of the city, wanted to make sure that the CIC was personally invited to the celebration for the Carnegie Library 100th anniversary. And I've just brought up the website here, just giving you some information. This is just our city website, and there's a link right on the homepage to this that you can go and look all this information over after the meeting or some other time when you have a couple minutes. But there's a whole bunch of festivities going on for the Carnegie celebration, and starting like Friday, well, even starting sooner than that, but Saturday is the main events. And I also was supposed to, so the ceremony is starting at 11 on Saturday. Sorry, I was trying to look for that right there. And I'm supposed to tell you to go to the Facebook page, the library Facebook page, and like the Oregon City Library on the Facebook page, because they're kind of in a competition right now with West Lynn, and Oregon City would like to beat West Lynn at one more thing. So that's the spiel. So I don't really have anything. I just wanted to personally invite everyone, wanted to bring attention to this web page with all of the information and the activities going on, and that's it. If there's any questions, I can try to assist you. Otherwise, just making you aware of it.
Can you leave that up, Katie?
Yep.
Okay. It doesn't appear that we have any questions, and the website is very, very complete in its information. So we'll move right on to Ask OCPW. And John, we started late. You still have your same amount of time that we talked about. It's not your fault that we started late.
So the information I'm handing out is very small, so I get that. It's a postcard that we sent out to mostly businesses along Molalla Avenue. So the project that I wanted to talk about was a project that we're seeking grant funding through the Metro Regional Flex Funds grant program. We're seeking out almost $4.9 million is what we're trying to get for Molalla Avenue from Beaver Creek Road, or where the Gentle Dental is, to Highway 213. And there are some sections of sidewalk that are complete in that stretch of road, so we're not talking about redoing those. But there would be a variety of things that would happen to that piece of boulevard. And lots of opportunity for planning and talking about what's the right thing to do for that boulevard. So we're not set at this point in time, but we have established a scope of work and a project estimate for making the boulevard more pedestrian friendly, more better with regard to channelization, intersection improvement projects at Gaffney Lane, Claremont, and the other intersections along that roadway that aren't necessarily signalized. What we really want to do is connect the affordable housing that generally falls on the west side of Molalla Avenue with the commercial zones on the east side of Molalla Avenue. So there's a lot of pieces that come with that, and you can find out. And the reason why I'm sharing this information with you in a postcard is mostly for a reminder. But if you know how to get to the city's website, I just want to point out that there's on the front page there's an online survey. This is a Metro survey. I would say it's kind of hard to get community feedback on these bigger projects. Usually, if you're a person who wants to know everything about the project, you can get it here. You don't need to know everything about the project to go in and complete this survey. And I think this survey will help to establish. We're competing with other Clackamas County projects. So there's a project in Happy Valley, and there's another project in Clackamas County. I can't remember Jennings, between McLaughlin Boulevard and Oatfield Road. Those are the main projects. There's also one more bridge project that some of you may be familiar with. It's the old railroad bridge, and they want to study whether it's worth keeping that. So Metro has actually got an application of their own, which is a much smaller application. So our project is listed as well. So you can click on the website here. It will take you to. This is kind of funky. It'll take you to the web page, which gives you a little bit of information, so you can get a quick summary of what the project is about. And then and then there's a link to take you right to Metro's website, and it points you specifically at our project. And you just scroll down, put your name and who you are. Your name and which organization you're with, zip code, and then there's really just 3 questions where they give you an opportunity to ask or to provide some input. How this information will be used, I don't exactly know. I think what the Metro and really the region is looking for is the county to work with the local agencies to come up with a recommendation. And I'm not quite sure how that's going to play out, but we'll just see how that goes. But in the meantime, we'd like to get this ends on June 7th. So if you haven't commented already, we need you to comment right away. And other than that, I can take questions on this if you have questions.
Tom?
Yes, John, I had a couple questions. You had offered this to me a week or so ago, and I went home and I looked at it very closely. In light of the fact that we're spending $4.9 million of county funding, I attempted to find out what the other projects consisted of to determine if, in fact, they were more worthy of that kind of an expenditure. And basically, we're looking at signal upgrades, we're looking at sidewalk upgrades, and bike paths, as I understand what we're basically doing here.
I think we're doing a lot more than that, but
Okay.
we also are another partner is TriMet, so they're looking at bus stop upgrades and provisions for. This is a highly used corridor for bus transit, and we're fixing a lot of sidewalk gaps that are missing sidewalks, and we've got a lot of places on Molalla that don't have good ADA access. So those are components of the project as well. I believe there'll be opportunities for us to improve the driveway access, because there's some places where the driveways are either really wide and or challenged for pedestrians to cross, and maybe more width than the types of businesses might need. So we'd be working with them for access management.
Are there anything in the project, and I had difficulty finding it, that is beneficial to people who live in Todd's neighborhood or my neighborhood, where we're not walking? We can't walk that far. And we certainly aren't going to carry a bag of groceries back home to where we live, or to where you live even. You know?
Yeah, right.
Is there anything in there that would motivate us to really get behind this?
Well, it's definitely more focused on those that, and this is true for a lot of our projects, more focused on those that are, right now you can, Molalla is a wide boulevard, and there's lots of potential for you to drive from one end of Molalla to the other end of Molalla. I think there'll be signalization improvements, but the pedestrian and bike improvements are going to be a big part of this. And it's again dealing with that element of trying to help people that maybe aren't going to add more vehicles to the roadway. But I think Claremont and Gaffney are good examples of where we can make a lot of improvements for you and me who want to get to Fred Meyer or to Goodwill or to the post office. In terms of channelization, again, helping with that access management so that people aren't necessarily having so many conflict points as they come out of these various driveways to get into what's a pretty busy boulevard.
Thank you.
So I think there's a lot of safety improvements.
Thank you.
Bob?
John, I've already completed the survey, so they have my name. If I want to try it again, would they kick me out?
I don't think so, but I don't.
You're Donald
It's probably
Trump.
not the mass. It's probably the content of the comments. So I would say feel free if you think you're going to contribute something new in your second round of comments.
Okay. I like to vote often whenever I can.
There you go. There you go.
Amy?
I filled out this also, John, and in answer to Tom, being a neighborhood association that's right next to that, at every one of our meetings, concerns come up about drivers. See, Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association, we don't have as many walkers. We're driving. But we have to drive through those people that are walking. And so if you've spent any time pulling out of Fred Meyer or Weimar, any of those, and it's a safety concern that as a driver that you're going to hit somebody. So I think any improvement we can make for the pedestrians, for the bikers, because the bikers don't know what to do either. And so they're just either all over the road or they're on the sidewalk. So it's a big issue for people driving. That I think that any improvement you can do for the pedestrian and for the biking is going to help us as drivers getting to those businesses. So I'm excited about this project. We put it on Facebook and I told everybody I could think of.
Thank
so
you.
We're getting the word out.
Yes.
Just
just a brief comment. Also, there are a number of retirement communities that are right there along that stretch, as well as apartments. And so when I see teetering elderly folks, any improvements we can make to ensure their safety is greatly appreciated.
One other comment, besides the survey, I know many of you play in the political realm from time to time, and so you might know your county commissioners, might have an opportunity to talk to your county commissioners. I think a face-to-face conversation with them about the importance of this project versus those others, which, Tom, if you looked on this website, we directed you to our project. But through that same website, you can get to those other projects and look at them in detail. I think having studied those some myself, I think our project is outstanding. But there's this sense that maybe it's not Oregon City's turn, and I think we need to get over that hump and work with the
Jennings Avenue has been a major issue problem-wise in the county for years, and it really needs attention. And that's why I wanted to weigh the two, one against the other in my own mind.
I think Jennings is the one project that competes best. Not as good as ours, but it competes best.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Real brief one is if we get the county money for this project, that's money that we don't have to spend out of Oregon City Treasury too. So it's this is a valuable coup if we can get it, because it definitely needs the improvements, and who should else would be better to pay for it, you or the other funds?
And they're not county funds either. There's Metro
but they're federal
state funds.
Yes, they're distributing.
County's involved.
You just improved my access to biscuits, and I'm in.
It does. It does.
I have one
You
other.
have more?
And Amber, on behalf of teetering old people everywhere, I want to thank you.
I don't have a slide for this one, but another announcement about some upcoming paving projects that are moving forward. There's two this year for 2013, two different contracts actually, several streets, but just wanted to pass that on. This is really not off the press. They haven't been sent to the printer yet, but I asked Kathy Griffin to print up some for this meeting to be able to hand out. It's just public information about the projects, who the contacts are, and how to get more information if you'd like that. So thought I'd share that with the audience as well.
Yes.
I don't know how much time that was, but that's all I...
No, you
thought
did
I'd
really well.
say.
What we're going to do next, rather than go into our business segment, which the first item on the agenda would be approval of the minutes, we're going to skip down to unfinished business 5A, addressing traffic issues related to McLaughlin Boulevard, Phase 2. This is an ad hoc committee report that Paul Edgar has prepared, and I wanted our Public Works Director to be here for this so he could contribute to the discussion. So, Paul?
Alex, real quick,
Yes.
I do have an ASCO CPW question.
Oh, do you?
Just to-
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
just-
see your
well,
name.
just put it-
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, John, I remember me talking about the locates on 15th, and then we kind of resolved that most of them were the Polk Street. There's still those other white flags with little locate marks on it, all down the length of 15th, and I can't read what it says. I can see that says something locate, 3 letters and then locate. So, and they're in white. So, if you could find out what those are, I'd really like to know more. We're all like, why are there sticks with flags in our yard and all that sort of stuff. So,
I did get an answer back on part of it, right?
yeah, that was the Polk Street
Water.
sewer and water.
And this
Yeah.
is, give me specifics again. Where? On
15th Street. There's down the length of 15th. There's 3 or 4, maybe it was half a dozen. I kind of stopped counting after I made sure there was more than one. White flags on sticks, and then right on the curb is some letters I can't read because it's spray painted something, and then locate, and it's in white. So, and it's down the length of 15th. So there's half a dozen, I'd say.
Got that?
That was it.
Paul, you're next.
On the ad hoc committee, I think we've got an agreement that the best vehicle for the process of any discussion about this is going to be through TAC. And I concur with that assessment, but I would just turn around and say, if we have a significant bottleneck that occurs on McLaughlin, it has economic repercussions across the whole city. And so the fear is, are we adequately planning, and do we adequately understand the implications if we have introduced 3,000 or 4,000 new incidents of travel through that one intersection? And I'm sure that TAC will take an opportunity to evaluate it, and let's just move on.
Okay. And we have our TAC chair here tonight, so it's nice that you made that comment. Do you have anything you want to add to that, John?
No, I would say, yeah. I think the TAC has been under consideration of this particular project and is informed about this project, as well as the rest of our TSP. And congestion in Oregon City is a hot topic right now. So it's not just about this intersection. Our city commission is also about to adopt a transportation system plan. Myself and our community development director and planning staff are planning to present what's really, I guess the title would be alternate mobility standards, and it's going to be a detailed kind of description of the situation Oregon City is in, as well as the rest of the region, and that's on June 11th. It's a work session, so they don't typically allow a lot of public comment, but we're working on a memo that tries to explain a lot of the situation that we're in and how we think best to approach it. I mean, at this particular location, we know the problem exists. We know that the problem is not necessarily related to Dunes Drive and McLaughlin. It's more related to the interchange of 205 and 99E, both northbound and southbound on-ramp locations. So, this, and there's other places where we have traffic backup like this, where we've got to really figure out how best to deal with that in the future. So I guess my main plug would be, I think that June 11th meeting is going to be another meeting where the city commission is going to be specifically considering how we deal with congestion in Oregon City over the long term, because the region, and Oregon City is an exception, is going to be dealing with, as we grow. I think that we've come to the point where the state and the federal government is saying we can't build our way out of these problems. So we do need to look at alternate modes of travel, and that's what we'll be talking about. So I guess that's what I'd like to say.
Okay. Thank you, John. And if you want to slip out, you certainly may. Okay, now we'll go backwards to our minutes and see if we can't get those approved. Did everybody have a chance to look at the minutes when they were emailed to you? Does anyone have any comments, corrections, or I would entertain a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Wait.
Sorry.
Wait.
Yeah.
I put my name up there.
Oh, you did?
Katie had asked that and brought to my attention when I was typing up the minutes and we said that the ad hoc committee was established, we should have listed who else was on the committee, so that will be added in if we can, when the motion comes forward, if we could approve it with that addition.
Okay.
Move approval is amended.
Yes, I accept the amendment to have those names added in.
Is there a second?
A second.
Was there a second?
Damon was.
I
Okay.
seconded the first
Okay.
one, and then I amended the second, and so he seconded the
Okay, so Michael Berman,
Yes.
Paul Edgar,
Yes.
Amber Holbeck. Yes. Amy Wilhite.
Yes.
Tom O'Brien,
Aye.
Steve Anderson,
Aye.
Faith Leith,
Yes.
Damon Mabey,
Aye.
Alice Watts,
Yes.
Bob LaSalle,
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek,
Yes.
Ingrid Rickenbach, Mary Ann Jensen, Todd Last.
Abstain.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, unless I'm totally living in a fantasy, we are actually ahead of schedule.
Don't say that out loud.
But yes, wouldn't it be fun to be done by 1:15? Well, anyway, we are now entering our new business discussion items, and my goal was to be here by 8:30, and here it is almost not quite 8:15, and we're there. So I'm real excited about that. The first item on the agenda, 6A, is a reactivation of 2 standing committees. This came up when the Bylaws Committee was reviewing the bylaws, and we realized that we had a number of standing committees that were not currently active, and we did feel strongly that both transportation and crime prevention is what it said in our bylaws. It's also known as Chiefs Advisory, and we have several people that are active on the CIC that go to the Chiefs Advisory, and I know of one person in our group that goes to transportation. Bob LaSalle is a TAC member for his own neighborhood association, and I would ask him if he would be willing to report to us each month.
Yes, I
Are
would.
you willing to do
Sure.
that, Bob? Okay. And then as far as the Chiefs Advisory, we have a number of people in this group who attend that. They're not all present tonight, so I unfortunately can't ask each and every one of them, but specifically they are Tom O'Brien, Steve Anderson, Paul Edgar, Todd Last, Amy Wilhite, and Tony Uzabegbumum. Tony's absent, so he's conveniently not going to be asked. Amy already has a large job doing secretarial work for us, and so I'm not going to ask her. Paul has a busy life working on our land use. So that leaves us with Tom, Steve, and Todd. And I would ask you 3 gents, which one of you would be willing to report to this group each month what you learn at Chiefs Advisory? Any volunteers? Todd? What? I'm going to get to that. Okay. Now I'll tell you the good part.
By the way, thank you, gentlemen, for stepping up.
Yes, thank you very much. The good part is I have developed a committee reporting form because I'd like to, in order to, one of the things that the Bylaws Committee discussed we were unanimous in wanting to hear from these different city committees, but we didn't want to extend the meeting time, and we have been challenged to be out in 2 hours. So what I did was I developed a written form that each committee chair can complete in time for Katie to submit with our agenda when it goes out. So that's about 10 days or a week. What do you say?
I send it out the Wednesday before that Monday. So if they could get it to me the week before, so that Monday before.
That's about 10 days
Yeah.
prior to the agenda going out. This is just a brief format for you to see what we're looking for. Basically, what my goal here is that if we know if there's anything significant that you're going to be sharing, we could be thinking about it in advance. Because sometimes we have a lot of questions and it takes forever to get through them. So that way, perhaps we could kind of shorten up the process. Is there any questions or discussion on that? Can I start with Steve and then
Yes,
maybe
please.
Paul?
Will this form be available to complete on computer, online?
It could be, sure.
I think it'd probably be somewhat easier to fill out and transmit back.
Well, and in fact, the other thing about this form is it may be too short for all the points you may want to make in your report. It's really more of a guide than an actual fill in the blanks. But if it's a short report, it could certainly be used for that purpose. And yes, the answer to your question is yes. Paul?
I tried to use this for the ad hoc committee for McLaughlin, and where I sent it out, and I got it directly from Alice. We sent it back out trying to get comment. Obviously, we didn't get much comment back from everybody, and I would have liked to have had some comment back from everyone. And the key to this thing is if somebody's a chair of a committee or part of any of this stuff, if other people are involved, you need to have some input. We need to hear from you, and when we don't hear from you, it kind of becomes self-defeating, and it makes it. I'm happy as an example now to turn my ad hoc stuff over to TAC.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if they can get comment.
Well, what I would share about that and suggest is that normally when a committee meets, they actually meet.
Okay, we need to. Okay.
It's hard.
To do it electronically.
Yes, that's correct. It is. Brian?
Comment or two. If this is being used as something from a committee, this is fine. If you need to put somebody's name, there should be space for that, which would be a minor change. There's
Give me an example.
This is from Paul Edgar or whoever,
Well, up in members is where you would put who's on the committee and who's chair.
Okay, that solves that.
And ordinarily, you would expect the chair to report, but that might not be the that might not be the case if they couldn't make the meeting where the report needed to be brought forward.
Yeah,
so
distributed as a Word document, it would easily expand to whatever size needed. So
yes, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any other questions? Are you still agree to do it, Todd?
Yes.
Because I didn't give you all the details before.
No, I went to the advisory meeting, and it was probably the most interesting meeting I've been to. So.
Okay, good. Good. Okay.
It's short.
I didn't even know they were trying to get a new police station built. So.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we'd like to know, too, those of us who don't go to those meetings. Damon?
I guess my concern is that this form be used in something other than to inform. I mean, if the committee is going to report, here's a brief synopsis of the Chiefs Advisory Meeting, blah, 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 the end, and we get it a few days in advance, and then we're ready to ask questions when we come here, that's fine. I don't think we should be exchanging anything because that's, that's meetings, that's all stuff that suddenly has to get added to the record, and it becomes pages and pages of emails. So,
well, what I took Paul's reference to mean was a committee that had been formed before this report is made. For instance, I could use the bylaws committee as an example. We've met several times, and Bob will be reporting for all of us once we're done, and we are essentially done. We just
it's just like these two, the transportation and chiefs. I mean, I like the idea of getting something in briefly as, here's a quick set of bullet points, and here's a link you can go to, and and in some cases, and by the way, go vote. But the other thing is, I'm not just in general in this forum. I don't think agenda item is appropriate because we don't know what agenda number it's going to be. So
I could concur with that, and it's not a hard and fast rule that you use, but the format is what I want to be used, so that all of our committees understand what we'd like, we'd like it to be presented, so that we can expedite the process.
The last thing on the bottom, the CIC approved action.
If there is one.
Well, I just think if it's going to be something that's coming to us to discuss, it should be requested CIC action.
Okay.
Because then we know what we're supposed to be thinking about doing, as opposed to we've approved this action. That's kind of that's like a summary report.
Okay. When I made the form, I assumed that would be under recommendations that you wanted the CIC to agree with. And then if they concurred with your committee, then we would sign off on it and do whatever the recommendation was.
But that would be in the record we're getting the Amy types up. It wouldn't be the recommendation from the committee. So.
Okay. Well, yes, I can modify it. if anybody wants to email me their suggestions, I will modify the form. But I'm really,
I like the idea. I think it's really good that there's
yeah, and I appreciate,
consistent method of reporting.
right, and I appreciate your willingness to try this. Okay, well then, the next item is committee reports, land use. Paul?
Is it within land use that I'm going to?
Well, I think you had two issues.
I had
One
two.
was a special land use that,
Okay, I would like to, if I could, I'd like to come out in front.
Uh-oh. He's using the big mics. It's going to be in stereo.
Hi, Paul Edgar. The first one that I'd like to talk to you about is land use, is that the consideration, if you could take a look at the comment form that you have on South End Road. And I had specifically been concerned about transportation implications of bringing in a lot of residential development, because the residential development that they have here to meet metro standards looks to bring from 2,000 to 2,500 residents in an area that's almost basically a cul-de-sac. So you'd go into on South End Road, and you come back on South End Road, and there's really no east-west, and you have a curlicue thing that leads out towards Canby, which is difficult. And so if you have an area, remote area that has difficulty supporting commercial or retail, you're going to have the ITE manual says you're going to have approximately 10 and a half trips, but when you have extenuating circumstances with no transit, you're going to have probably closer to 12 trips per household. And if you multiplied that out times the number of households that they call EDUs, equivalent dwelling units, so it's a kind of a technical term. If you multiply that out, what you all of a sudden get to is maybe 30,000 incidents of travel coming out of this coming down, going north, hitting South End and Warner Parrott. When you do that, you're at a break point. Okay, and you can try to figure it out any way you want to do it. But historically, we have people, when they move into an area like this, they oftentimes have jobs someplace else, and they're trying to come out into suburban areas and find some place where it's livable. And when they do that, their jobs, and most of the jobs, are north. So when you're traveling out of here, you may come to South End, or on South End to Warner Parrott. Maybe 20 or 25% is going to go onto Warner Parrott East at that point, and some of it will go that way because they can't stand going further north on South End, down the hill, down to 2nd and High Street, and then filtering over to 99, and then they go down 99, around the corner, through the tunnel, and into the maze, and some of them will go across to West Lynn, going that way on the old bridge. Some will go straight on McLaughlin, and some will go 205. But that is literally the 80% that comes out of this. And so when we do that, the real question is how many people, how many dwelling units can an area that's a cul-de-sac really support? And how does that impact all of Oregon City and what we're thinking about? So I asked questions directly of Pete Walter, and Pete, he has his things. He says, well, the trips will be 10 trips, or 6 to 9. I asked different questions about the 80%, and he comes back in the sense that says that 42% of the people are employed in Oregon State. Well, I don't necessarily buy that, and I don't necessarily buy that each of these people buying a house where you need 30% of your payroll to get the loan, are going to have a single household person commuting in an AM PMP. That's not historically what's actually happening. So the gist of this is, should we be considering this type of high density, 10 residential units per acre, type of concept plan when we know that it has real problems? And if I'm sitting out there where Tom is, or some of the other people are that filter in through this area, or the people that are coming down South End Road. I remember originally talking to the planner, the head planner, this part of this concept plan, and I asked him about this, and he said, well, we'll just make South End Road 3 lanes or 4 lanes coming down the hill.
Huh.
And I kind of looked at him, and so that's how the genesis of some of this planning was, where the lack of knowledge about truly the geology, what's physically possible, was just not there. So we're advancing along, happily going along, creating this concept plan. And to me, as a land use person and as somebody who has extensive transportation training, and after I retired, I started taking classes, upper division classes in transportation in Portland State, to try to augment it. And I sat on a committee of metro transportation planning in late 1990s, which really started my ball rolling, where I got pretty technically informed on a lot of transportation. But what I see is I have the feeling that we're sticking our head in the sand. And I think we need to be smarter. I think that this case, maybe in South End Road, we should not be expecting 2,500 residential units out there. Maybe we could sport 1,000, but it should be low density. And right now we can't look at TriMet. TriMet is going to reduce bus miles driven in routes as they try to balance their budget with $1.15 billion in unfunded health and retirement benefits. They've got a big problem, and they're trying to work their way through. So for us to turn around and say we're going to get TriMet to run buses out to there, I don't look at TriMet as an option. I could, however, creatively look at Canby's CAT and say maybe we need to go into a joint venture with them, because anything that we do to lessen the impacts of this is positive to all of us. But that was the big thing. I thought I should just give you Pete's comments directly. I get you informed about what the impacts are, and allow everyone to arrive at their own conclusion. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Todd, you can be first.
Sure. I share a lot of your concerns living in Tower Vista, and I think we had Tony Conkle come out with the Metro representative to talk about growth at our last meeting. And one of the things that was asked was about these transportation estimates, and we were told that, well, they just have this formula that gives them the number. And so my concern is, it doesn't sound like there's ever been any actual measurement of traffic. And so, it makes me wonder that, it's like if I were an engineering student and I said, well, I took this formula out of the book to get the number, I don't think my teacher would pass me if I didn't have some actual data to back it up. So that's
even the numbers that's in here from Pete on traffic on the South End Road. As a member of the Clackamas County Transportation Advisory Committee, and Clackamas County owns South End Road from down the hill, I specifically asked them what the trips are on South End Road. And they have been historically between 9,000 to 10,000 trips per day. Okay? So, and that's historically what's there. And we can go back on those records. Cam Gilmore was a friend, moving on now, but I had direct access to some of those numbers. So the congestion level is there right now. And if you were to take and add 30,000 more incidents of travel, how can we stuff that? Where does it go? And if anybody has any good ideas, to me, the only logical thing is say, let's cut back the expectation of the number of dwelling units that's being envisioned for the site, and make it low density, and then kind of hope and pray.
Well, we've got a couple more comments, Tom.
Oh, I just wanted to.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're not done.
Sorry. One of the things we learned about the Chiefs meeting is that the accident rate in Oregon City is much higher than any place else around here. And the chief was talking about how far he had to look outside of our city to find a comparable city. And so that needs to be taken into account too. If we're adding that much traffic, if our accident rate's higher, you can expect we're going to have even more accidents.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a few comments, some of it personal, but I had early on gotten involved in the citizen advisory team for this project to represent my neighborhood association. And my reason for doing that was that my major concern was the fact that the road system, as it currently exists, and with the limitations that it has for future in terms of being able to be widened or accommodate additional traffic. So it's been a concern of mine from the beginning, but I think as I reflect on it, it may take care of itself. I do want to comment on that one area in the paragraph where they say that 42% of employed Oregon City residents work in the Oregon City area. I find that extremely difficult to buy. I couldn't swallow that one. But I think that the market takes care of overload of traffic systems. When I moved back to Oregon City from Minnesota, I looked at the area over near the high school, the Oaks area, and I looked at the traffic on 213 and Beaver Creek Road, and I said, no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to deal with that. So I think it's a hindrance to development when you don't have infrastructure in place. And so I think market conditions to some degree will solve some of what Paul is concerned about and what I'm concerned about. People simply aren't going to buy into buying a piece of property where they can't get through. Our major problem today is that interchange at 205 and 99. I came through there this afternoon at 3:43 in the afternoon, was not yet rush hour, yet a half a dozen cars on the southbound darted out from the lanes that they were in front of other vehicles to get out of that traffic mess and back up. That is an extremely high accident area and more accidents waiting to happen. And if the city doesn't do something about that area in conjunction with whatever plans they've got, I think they're really, they deserve to be sued. That's all I want to say.
Mike? You're up.
I noticed, Paul, you had a suggestion at one point to extend Beetle Road and maybe eliminate some of that. And it seems like it had zero traction. Did anybody ever follow up with you on that? It seemed like
yes,
a logical.
Yes, if you could, that's kind saying that it South Forest Ridge Road and Butel Road both kind of come up, and there's an area where you could drop over the bluff down to Highway 99, and over the years I remember talking with Nancy Krischauer, and Nancy looked at me as the old before John and said, I agree with you, we need to figure some way to come up and create an alternative way. And I remember talking with Jim Desmond, who was the head of Metro Natural Areas, and they kind of own the right-of-way now through there. And I asked Jim directly if we needed to put a road through there to go down to Highway 99, would you stop it or oppose it? And he said no. Okay, so that but it doesn't have traction. I've asked for it to be put onto the county TSP. It is kind of memoed on the Oregon City TSP, but the practicalities, the geology of it is extremely difficult because it's in an active, ancient slide zone. And it's not like anything different, however, than 213. Okay, so, but to the practicality of it, until we get our backs really against the wall and things start to break, then no one's really going to think about it. And until, my opinion is that for the sake of all the people that live on the hillside right now, what I would just propose is let's make their life somewhat livable, because they've got squatter rights. They've been there first. Let's make their life not terrible, and so let's kind of go slow on the development of residential in an area where we don't have capacity to be able to support it. And the biggest action item out of this is if there's an agreement that that's a reasonable posture to be taken by the CIC as a recommendation. I think it would be the posture of the action item is to say, let's go slow, let's have low density, because literally we don't have the transportation infrastructure to support much of anything. Okay, it's just common sense. Let's try to do it, because you can read all the stuff, and I wanted you to see it, but we've got a South End Road that cannot be widened or touched. We've got intersections that somebody said, well, build a roundabout at South End and Warner Parrott. And I said, well, do you want to take out the new townhouses and the grocery store, or do you want to take out the houses around there? Tell me how you want to configure that roundabout at that location. Or do we want to go down next to your house and put a roundabout at 2nd and High Street? You know, and where do we, which cow do we gore?
We have another commenter, John Lewis. Would you want to?
Right. I want to point out I'm in somewhat agreement with Paul on some of these, so I need to make that point once in a while. It doesn't happen that often. But I think the reason why in our transportation system plan there's still a footnote, if you will, or a notation that there should be a roadway from, say, Butel area down to 99E. I personally also agree with that. There's been a lot of influence from Metro on the idea that not happen. They're interested in preserving the intent their whole intent on buying that open space area along the bluff was to preserve it as one large body of natural space. And so to divide that into two pieces with a roadway that is also, there's huge questions about how you would fund that. I think it could be built, but again, just like 213, it's in a slide area, but things can be, engineered to do that. So I kind of agree with that. I know our concept plans don't show it. I mention it to the planning group every opportunity they get to mention that. So I still think it's a possibility, and I think it's something that should be considered. I worry about it a little bit because I also live off South End Road, and my sense is if you put that roadway in there, it's definitely going to, might bring traffic. I don't know, but the concern that I have is for South End, not necessarily so much for capacity, because other than the intersections that Paul has mentioned, I think the corridor down the hill has got the capacity to carry the traffic that we're talking about. But it also has some slide activity on it right now, and so if that were to slide, we would be in a. And, it is a county road, but my guess is because it's in the city, city staff are going to look like the ones who, should be responsive to that, and I'm not really excited about that position as well. So, but, okay, so let me say that. And then I wanted to speak to Todd's comments, because, and really Tom's as well. I agree with this. I think the market will ferret out a little bit, despite all the good planning that we can do. There's property owners out there that have property rights, and we're going to kind of struggle, I think, through some of this. I think the concept plans bring some really cool neighborhood ideas to, as someone who lives off of South End Road out near the city limits. It would be nice to have some of the amenities that they're showing in these concept plans. It would really make my community a much more livable community. So, but I get traffic, and traffic is always, it's an easy target. I'll tell you that right now. Traffic is the easiest target to take on. There's other concerns. I mean, utilities are another issue that we have to think about on this project. But the idea of trying to fund these projects that are already project needs. We've got transportation needs that we're showing in our transportation system plan, Todd, that you're kind of referring to. Right now, we're hanging our hat on new development to help fund those projects, and without the transportation SDCs that we would collect through new development, we're already looking at a pretty long unfunded project list. Without development in Oregon City, we're going to be looking at an even longer list. Now, some would say, well, you might not need those projects if you don't have the growth. But a lot of the projects that are in our TSP are walking, biking, the kind of things that build community or help build community. So problems, a lot of models, a lot of cities' models are based on collecting from new development, an SDC or a charge or a requirement of them to build new infrastructure or upsize infrastructure that's too small to handle them. I can tell you our infrastructure is failing, whether it be water or sewer. There's problems with those systems that new development would help fund to fix. If we don't see new development, I think each of you need to ask yourself, are you ready to help step up and pay for that price? The federal government, they used to build stuff like that. We just don't see it anymore. So I think that's the second side of this equation. Growth provides benefits that people don't realize and or they forget about. And once they're here and they're happy to be here because they just got their brand new beautiful little subdivision, but they don't want anybody else to be here. And I think, there's a flip side to all of these arguments, and I'm not advocating one way or the other. I think there's some good work that's going into this study. I think that there's some transportation flaws in South End Road. I think there's connectivity opportunities that they're talking about in these plans that get people, to some of the side roads, so that maybe if they work in Molalla or if they work in the other parts of Oregon City, they can get there. So
we've got two other commenters, and the two remaining, if you could also, with your comments, try to answer Paul's question. Where do we go from here? So, Todd, you're first.
Okay, I can't answer Paul's question.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify something, because when we had the community development director in Metro out to our association meeting, we heard something exactly opposite from what you said. They told us that the SDC fees do not completely pay for all of the infrastructure improvements required by a neighborhood. So, and you just said they do, so I'm kind of curious what the...
I said they don't pay for everything. They're the biggest contributor to those facilities, the fees that are paid through new development or the requirements that are placed on new development.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay. And Michael, and then Amber, and then you have another report, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll end it there. Mike first.
Well, I just kind of wanted to touch a little bit on where do we go from here with Paul. I agree with, I just know that I would agree with him with what he said, but I also wanted to speak a little bit about the SDC charges as well, and I think that we forgot that, when we lose Morgan Distributing, which was light industry and transportation and several hundred employees, and the paper mill in 2008 had 300 employees, and that was $500,000 in taxes to the city. And industries, it's not just new residential, but we got to look at the city and that area that we were talking about up there with the Kanemia Flats in the Beetle Road. Paul identified it as geographically a nice area for industrial as well, farther down. And as in, yes, residential brings in SDC chart fees and funds, and the neighborhood has to grow. But I think we need to keep our target on industry as well, and maybe that takes some of the heat off of putting 25 houses up there, 2,500 houses.
Amber?
Paul, I'm assuming that you have been involved in the South End concept plan meetings, open houses, discussions, those kinds of things. And did you have an opportunity to share your comments and concerns that you've laid out here for us in an open forum where there were others who could raise their hands and say, yes, I agree, Do you have some kind of groundswell from the folks in the South End Neighborhood Association?
I have shared them out, and I've tried to take them directly to the key people. I know the consulting firm. I know Pete real well. As I sent them directly to them, and I've gone to every one of the meetings, and I've tried to participate in every way I could. And they're very well orchestrated, and it does make it very difficult as a citizen to get into detail at the detail level that I'm trying to get to in an open forum, because a lot of it's just as I'm going over the head of a lot of people. They just, in the degree that they don't really have a desire to hear a lot of this stuff.
So we really don't know if the neighborhood association fully.
Yes. If you at the last open house this last Saturday, when they were asked about having low density housing up there, it was about 95% said that's what they want in every one of the places where they could mark it up. There were two people here earlier from South End Road that I talked to, and they said, I want to come down and talk about this because this is so critical to us, and we're in total concurrence. So I would say that the citizenry out there, if anything from all of the exposure I've had, they're in agreement. So they're saying, let's do something better. Okay, then we need lower density.
Okay. We haven't heard from Ingrid tonight, and I noticed her name's come up. You will be absolutely the last one.
Well, I was just going to say, we represent. It's on, right? And Mary Ann and I represent the South End Neighborhood Association, and we have discussed it. We have had people come to our meetings, and most people like it the way it is that come to the meetings and are concerned about it. So when you ask if he'd had input from the South End neighborhood, it's a small group, but they do like it. They're kind of concerned about the changes that could come.
You like your neighborhood the way it is, and you don't want it to grow. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, we liked it the way it was 20 years ago, and it's growing.
Okay. Okay. All right, we're going to have to end it there because Paul has another report. Can you make your other report as brief as possible?
I would like to take this moment. Howard, can you come up, please? Howard's the chair of the Kenema Neighborhood Association. And Howard and I, first page of this that I put out is a little history lesson on what Kenema is and the history of why it is an asset, a jewel of Oregon City, and it's the only National Register district in all of Clackamas County. The second page of what I have here is literally about what happened. Howard and I put together, tried to negotiate with a builder to try to save our district, try to save the integrity of it, of a National Register historic district. And so we tried to deal with a builder for months and months and months. He wouldn't respond, wanted to go before the HRB. We asked for to have it continued over because we never were able to get a response from him. So right in the middle of it, we walked out and said, let's talk with the builder. The builder started saying, okay, I will agree to the 5 points that you find on page 3. I'll agree to those 5 points. And we said, okay, it's not everything we want, but those 5 points would have given us a vernacular house that is consistent with vernacular designs and not a hybrid. It would have given windows of the window designs like you can see on the last 2 pages, which are historic windows in window design. It would have. It was going to give us we only asked to have it done on the street view. We said, okay, we'll compromise on this to say it's just so that it doesn't negatively impact a National Register historic district. And then we had a neighbor that lives there's 2 historic houses right next door and right across the street. And they're listed back here. They showed them in the pictures. And the house next door, we said, well, let's just move the house over on the plot as far away as we can from it so that it doesn't negatively impact that house. And so I talked with Christina Gardner Robinson, and she says, we can do that. So we put this into here, and he agrees that, and that still gives 40 feet separation from a non-standard house to the left. And we agree that if we move, we don't want that garage sticking out like a snorkel. It's not inconsistent with historic designs.
Okay, Paul, I have to interrupt you. Since this is a Kanema neighborhood
Yeah.
issue,
What
it was
the
my
reason-
understanding that you had problems with the HRB review
And so the HRB
process.
decided to take all of the 5 stipulated agreements that we had and throw them out. Say that what the neighborhood associations agree to and what they have an agreement with the builder on, they said, we don't care what those are, we know what's best. And so Howard and I and our neighbors were just flabbergasted to say, oh my God, you mean neighborhood associations who come to an agreement with a builder on a set of standards?
And the city staff said it was fine with them also.
That all of a sudden, and all we're worried about is trying to protect our neighborhood and the historic district, the integrity of it, and not have something that is a hybrid next to historic structures of significance.
But
and so,
does the HRB trump the city?
No.
The
So
city
now
trumps
it goes
HRB?
back, so if we appeal this, we want to appeal this to the city commission. And we think that they didn't have to do what they did. They shouldn't have, in our opinion, should not have done what they did, but they have the right to do it. And I think that they just didn't feel like that they wanted to deal with a meddling neighborhood association into their God-given right to make those decisions. Maybe I'm speaking out, but after what happened to us, it was I was almost in tears, and my neighbors and the people that were there, they just said, "Oh my God!" And immediately after we got out of the meeting, I sent off this email that said, "We intend to appeal." And so what we're asking here of you, and I thought I would give you all of the information on the historic district, what the buildings look like, what vernacular houses look like. There's a letter here from the neighbor right next door. Says, you know, I would like to have the house look with the right window design. So they're proposing fiberglass windows.
Now tell us what you want us to do.
We'd just like to have your concurrence to support us in our appeal before the city commission.
When will you be doing that?
We will be putting in the formal letter to appealing this week, and then it goes into the process. We don't know when it will come up as a city commission agenda item, but our intention is to give you all of the facts, show you the windows, give you the feel of what we went through. And Howard, what do you think?
The only thing we're trying to do is the code says it needs to be compatible with the neighborhood. 12-12 pitch is compatible on either side of 12-12 pitch, and that's one of the things we're asking for. The second things we're asking for the windows. I mean, they aren't big things, but we're trying to say you have a chance to make a show house here in Kanema. Let's kind of, we're not telling you what to build because the builder can do anything you want to do, but let's kind of incorporate a couple of these things into it that would just set it out.
So the CIC, which represents neighborhoods that are not historic, but we have several that are, you see this potential for pollution within the neighborhood of housing developments or just a single house that's not compatible, and you want us to take stand on that issue?
Yes, and you can see in our letter from the neighbor right next door, she references 20 houses in the neighborhood, infill houses, that have gone in recently that are just awful, and they've been approved. We have a code item in the historic, in our code, our city code for a historic district, that says no metal roofs.
Right.
They have allowed them right through the HRB. It's in our code. And so we're just saying, come on folks, if we can't have it both ways.
Right.
You know, if we got a standards, if we've got the only National Register historic district in all of Clackamas County, And when I went to a bunch of the key people of the State Historic Preservation League, they looked at me and they said, "And you mean they're allowing concrete siding?"
Well, can we hear from some of the members? We're running out of time here. Can we get a consensus on this, or do we need a motion? Does the committee agree, Tom?
I would like to propose a motion that the CIC support the original agreement that city staff agreed to prior to the not allowing on the Historic Review Board.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to support the original city
The agreement that we
the
have
agreement.
explicit.
So is
For the
that?
design?
I'm sorry. I'm just going to ask a really quick question. I'm sorry. I went to the restroom and came back, but the motion that you're asking them to approve is something that the city has in writing that they agreed to, or in verbal, or
It was,
because this seems kind of.
No, it was, what we're asking for is literally, is this, is
Answer Katie's question, please.
No, we read all of these things by the city, and they did not disagree.
But did they agree?
Yeah,
No.
the pitch was agreed on, the 12-12 pitch. Christina agreed.
Verbally or in writing?
I got an email to that effect.
Okay, because I'm just wondering if all of this, I don't have a problem with you presenting all of this or whatever, but I'm just wondering if there should be a city staff person here to also explain the other sides of things, or maybe what happened at the HRB meeting, because we don't have the minutes here in front of us or anything like that. And I didn't watch the HRB meeting. I don't know how it all went down or what all. I just am wondering if we need a little bit more information before a decision is made.
We're going to be going, we have to file within 10 days of the time of the ruling. So we have to file, period, no matter what.
So our letter of
And-
support
and-
would be attached to that appeal, is that what
that's
you're
right. And that's
suggesting?
all we're doing, and what we're asking for is we had an agreement with the builder for these 5 points. We had an agreement with him. And every one of the points here was also non-contested by the city. And we went in, after we got the agreement, we said we would withdraw our continuance of the meeting if we could go ahead with these 5 points. And we said we would withdraw, and then they took those 5 points and threw them out. And that was the 5 points. We had an agreement with the builder, and that was the reason why we eliminated our request to have a continuance, because we resolved it finally. But we didn't resolve the HRB. So what they went ahead and did was unilaterally different than what this is and what we had agreed to. And this is not perfect, but what we wanted was not to have atrocities continue to happen.
We have a motion on the floor. Amy, can you read the motion? Do you have it?
Katie. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
Katie
sorry.
has it?
I didn't get all of it. I
I was
apologize.
afraid you might not.
Yeah. So,
Can you
repeat it?
Tom?
I would like to propose a motion that the CIC support the appeal by Kanema Neighborhood of the Historic Review Board's decision based upon the fact that an agreement had already been reached with the developer and was not objected to by city staff.
Bob, is that the motion you understood? Didn't you second it?
I'll second.
That was the one that you understood it to be.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that besides? Okay, Damon.
Yeah, I mean, not to besmirch Paul, but we have Paul's assertion, but no documentation, and so for us to take an official stance to go to an appeal of an HRB decision, you know, I mean, we have Paul's list of the 5 points. We don't have any even initials from the developer or from the city staff that they even saw them. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying we're dealing with what could go to Luba, and they're going to say the same thing. So, so I'm not particularly comfortable with that. If it's an issue with HRB and how they do their business, I'm more than comfortable enough supporting Kenema's, concerns that HRB is not following their rules as stated in city code. And if we need to send a letter of support for Kenema's appeal based on them not following the rules, I'm okay with that, because you've given us information both in the city code as well as the drawings of that they may not have approved things appropriate to city code. That's a completely different thing than supporting the letter of approval that was ignored, because I don't have that letter. I don't have any form of approval.
I think it was verbal, wasn't it?
If I can quickly answer, these 5 points are part of the staff record. They were included in all of the documentation that went before the HRB, okay, and can be referenced by going to the computer site.
I understand that, but you didn't present us with anything that says Exhibit 7 or whatever that shows that it was ever entered into the record. I don't have time to go look it up based on this. So I understand your concerns with HRB not following the rules. I got no problem supporting that.
And our issue is it is the combination of all of the points that together create a non-standard type of structure that has negative impacts in a historic district, and we're trying to break that up and try to get something that is more compatible. And Damon, all I can say is that Howard and I work very hard to protect the historic integrity of Kenema.
You've been doing it for 25 years that I'm aware of, and there's a dilution effect that you've always been concerned about.
And we're trying hard, and we felt like we had a shot at doing something good. And Howard set for sheriff of the HRB for how many years?
18. Okay, but we got people who want to contribute here, so please let's let John go next, please.
Well, just a couple of questions, Paul. The HRB has ruled on Kenema issues for quite a while. Have they been good to work with? I mean, no, that's not the question I have. It's just, is this unusual for you to have to kind of overrule the HRB? Or does it happen regularly?
They built 2 triplexes down there that's not allowed, not compatible, not anything, and they're there. We didn't challenge them, but it's done.
They put in the metal roofs and allowed it?
Okay.
Yes.
So the timing of the appeal, is there enough time, given this group meets monthly, I mean, they can submit an appeal, but could a letter come later?
We have to have it in by Tuesday. That's our 2 weeks.
Could a letter come in later, a support letter come later?
Yeah.
Do you know how, what's
they're basically saying the neighborhood makes no difference.
The neighborhood's input.
In a historic district, the neighborhood makes no difference. They want to build 3 more houses, then they're going to go to McLaughlin.
I got one more question. Was staff, Christina, I guess, was she aware you were going to bring this issue to the CIC?
Yes, I sent her a copy of this email that
next day.
The very next day that in fact we were going to appeal, and I asked her for.
Did she know you were going to be here tonight testifying?
Yes.
Yeah, she knew that.
Yep.
With enough time to get here and that kind of thing.
It's not their choice, is what they're doing.
Okay.
Mike?
I really tended to agree with Damon, and I think maybe Tom's motion might be too specific. I think the case is well documented here, and not just because I live in Kenema as well in an 1867 house that's actually architecturally kind of unique to the rest of Kenema, but it's still with the vernacular style and the windows and the wood siding, and it fits. I mean, it was built in 1867, but there are variations within architectural styles in Kenema, but what's relevant is all these 5 points. I'm surprised I didn't see the siding which was, I guess, the kind of you gave them that.
We had asked for the siding, but backed off of it as part of the negotiation with the builder.
Because Hardy Plank doesn't look anything like.
Yeah, Hardy Plank, but if we appeal this all the way, we will appeal including the siding. We originally just said, if you'll agree to these 5 points, then let's just get on with life.
Yeah. Well,
and that was the point. It was not like it was a perfect thing, and the siding was very ugly. Concrete siding is not what we want next to these historic houses. You can see the pictures of those windows, and you can see the type of siding that exists. And what the concrete siding does not even come close to that.
No,
and so you put it right side by side, but somewhere along the line you have to make some negotiations. And we were trying hard to get on with life and say, okay, if you'll make the basic building look right, proportionally correct, and not detract, we'll back off of 1 point. And it wasn't, but we asked them, would you still consider wood siding? And he said yes.
Yes, I'm willing to withdraw my motion if it is a better approach to follow what Damon is suggesting. I think that we need to achieve something where a historic district needs to be preserved, and the rules that are in the shape of ordinances within the city need to be followed.
I would suggest Damon's very good at crafting a motion. Would Damon perhaps give something, a motion that we could help endorse this cause?
Well, I wasn't thinking that way, but basically I wasn't thinking of a motion, not that I wasn't thinking of supporting the cause, but I guess just off the top of my head, it would be a case of the CIC supports Kenema in their appeal based upon our concerns with HRB's interpretation of current city code. Does that answer Kenema's concern?
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Todd?
Did you get that?
Want to give Katie a few minutes.
Without regard to the 5 points?
Yeah, we're not concerned about that's Kenema's. Our concern is that the HRB isn't following their guidelines.
And you can't, yeah.
Perfect.
And that's the Hardy siding and everything else that you might appeal. So it covers everything.
They've got rules that say they can accept Hardy siding.
Well, but I'm just saying.
I know, and even if you like it or you don't.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Further discussion? No further discussion. I'll go ahead and take the. Wait.
Amber.
My only fear with this motion now is that we really don't have the code in front of us.
We have some of it, and I base that on these excerpts from our code, which say it's from Oregon City Code for Historic District, and I've seen it because I'm in McLaughlin and we play with this, so I'm kind of an insider. And also the drawings that were submitted a couple pages earlier. Between those two things, I'm comfortable with saying that it appears that the code was not followed.
So is that like under building styles and characteristics of the style, those kinds of things? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
In particular, the garages. Generally, there aren't garages, and when they are, they should be located behind, not in front of the structure. I mean, just that is enough for me to say it doesn't look like they followed the code. Let's go forward with, irrespective of the other points. So.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Bob.
I'd just like to say that I think it's important that we pass this as a offer of support for one of our fellow neighborhood associations.
Thank you. And I would echo that, living in the McLaughlin neighborhood.
Okay, let's move forward with the roll call here. So Michael Berman.
Yes.
Paul Edgar.
Yes.
Amber Holbeck.
I need to abstain, if I may.
Amy Wilhite.
Abstain.
Tom O'Brien.
Yes.
Steve Anderson.
Yes.
Faith Leaf,
Yes.
Damon Maybe,
Aye.
Alice Watts,
Yes.
Bob LaSalle,
Yes.
Steve Van Haverby,
Yes.
Ingra Rickenbach,
Yes.
Mary Ann Jensen,
Yes.
Todd Last.
Yes.
Okay, it passes.
Good. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the good work you guys do. Okay, our last committee report would be our CIC bylaws review chair, Bob.
And I promise to be brief.
Thank you.
We approached this project with the attitude of not making changes just for change's sake, but we've also considered what has worked, and we want to end up with a document that's going to last for a while. So we've made changes which reflect historical experience and fine-tuning of who and what the CIC really is, a residence-based organization. So I'm going to give you a few examples of some of the things that we've looked at here. Article 1, it formerly defined the name of the CIC, but we've expanded it to include the mission, vision, and values which are stated in the city website. Article 2, we've added to privileges and responsibilities of the CIC members also the roles of membership, which is also in the city website. So we're aligning this with what's already on record. Also in Article 2, we've added that representatives in the CIC must reside within the boundaries of the neighborhood association which they represent, to include adjacent urban growth boundaries. Article 8 in elections, which brought up this whole issue from last December, if you'll remember. We firmed up that article and more clearly defined how and when the elections are to be held. And we've also inserted language which would allow voting to be done by ballots without verbal notification of your vote, just like we did at the last voting of officers. So those ballots will not be secret. They'll be on file for anyone to see if they so wish. And we've limited officers to 2 consecutive terms in any one office. There was never any limit to that. You know, we could have had an FDR here for 12 years if we wanted to.
Wouldn't be all that bad.
I think new and fresh blood is good from occasion. We're having our one more meeting on June 20th to tune the final product, and then we'll present the bylaws to the whole group here. At that time, I don't intend for any discussion to be made because I'd like you to take them home and give them a good study, and then the following month then we can have some lively discussions, I'm sure. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But the copy that you'll get will have the portions that have been deleted, they'll be crossed out, and any additions of words or sentences or paragraphs will be in bold. So you'll be able to easily compare the old to the new. So it should be pretty easy. That's my brief account of our progress.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Very
Bob.
succinct.
Thank you.
Good.
If I may, Chair, I want to share just kudos for Bob's leadership on this bylaws review.
Me
Thank
too,
you
because
so
I'm on
much.
that committee with him, and I've been really enjoying his organizational and facilitation skills. Well, our last agenda item is our roundtable, and since it's 9:15, I would caution all of our members, we like to hear from all of you, but if you don't have anything that's really date or a time issue, maybe you want to just pass so that we can get out of here by maybe 9:20. But don't take that instruction as a thought that we don't want to hear from you. It's just that you don't have to say anything if you don't have anything. So let's start over here with Faith.
Well, I was going to share something at our meeting that we had on Tuesday, May 7th. We had a presentation from, now I can tell you who they were, Mark Nye from Nye Architecture and Tim McLean from MBC Commercial Construction, but they have plans for a Black Rock Coffee drive-through at Malala and Malala Boulevard in the Southridge Center.
It's right by the South Ridge sign there, and we were talking about Malala and all these. This was one of the improvements because they're going to do a driveway. We only asked them to. It's going to be a huge driveway. It already is pretty big there, so we asked them to put an island in the middle so that when people walk, they can have a place that's safe, and so they included that in there. They're going to have bike racks there and a real easy entrance for bicycles and stuff. And it's a really nice 2-story structure. And it'll be a coffee place where people drive through. And we were concerned about, whenever they put in Krispy Kreme donuts or whatever, there's always a long line of cars all the way down the street. Well, they said their line of cars won't be, it'll be going towards Goodwill. So they've got this all that space in there that's never filled up with Goodwill parking, so their cars can line up there and they won't bother the street. So anyway, we went. It was like an hour talk, and we went back and forth, and they made some changes, and we sent them a letter saying that we approve of their design, and that's what we did.
Do you have any idea what Steve might have shared before he left the room?
He let me do it.
Okay,
this is the only thing we were going to share.
Okay,
yeah,
good planning.
I'm going to pass.
Okay. Amber?
Just want to remind everybody, if they don't already know, awards presentation this Wednesday, June 5th, celebrate Oregon City Heritage. Oregon City is an Oregon Heritage All-Star community. Cake and refreshments, 6 p.m. right here at City Hall, and stick around for a City Commission meeting. And then otherwise, please be a frequent returner to the Oregon City Oregon City Chamber website, www.oregoncity.org. Have all kinds of updates. Send us your meetings and events. Thank you.
Your magazine this last one, and I don't recall how often you put it out. It was excellent.
Okay. Okay, I'm Brian Boyce from the new Two Rivers Neighborhood Association. We cover the area from the South Fork water intake all the way to Blue Heron along the Clackamas and Willamette rivers. And we're here in position to get people to participate. We're a little bit unusual in that the majority of our members are going to be business and landowners with some residential included in the mix. So it'll be a little bit different. But still, it's getting people to say their 2 cents worth and balancing development and preservation. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, thank you.
Pass.
Pass?
Can't.
Well,
find the words?
Yeah, it's a quick one. Yeah, I volunteered, I guess. I volunteered for our farmers market thing.
Oh, that's right.
And I don't really. It's really difficult for me to do it. I'm not shucking it. I'm still going to do it, but I need a little help. I don't know where to start with it really. So if anybody wants to throw a bone at me, that'd be great. And I think that we should be there. And I think it'd be great to be able to have, like McLaughlin does with the snow cones. If we had something up there to offer besides pamphlets, it'd be kind of fun too.
Okay. Does anybody want to help Mike on this? It's just every month. It's not every Saturday.
Once a month.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be up there once a month.
Mike, do you know when though? I mean,
You-
once you tell us
When
when,
is
I
it?
can tell you if I.
Yeah.
No,
Third
when is it?
Saturday.
Right.
Third Saturdays.
Third
Okay.
Saturdays.
That's more than I knew last time. Thanks, Damon.
I could help Mike occasionally, not every time, but 2 or 3
And
times during the
Amy
summer.
and Alice.
Yeah.
Tell me your name again. Mary Ann, of course. That's wonderful. Well, that's a team to start.
Good team.
Yeah. Tom?
At our last meeting, we had a discussion about the budget for the CIC and the various neighborhoods. And at that time, I mentioned that I was in the process of working on acquiring some signs. We have a unique well, I don't know how unique it is. We have a situation in our neighborhood where we have 2 main thoroughfares, Central Point Road and South End Road. And all of the residents, all 800 and some, live off of one of those 2 roads. And so we wanted to get signs to help people understand when we were going to have our meeting. This is the result of what we achieved. However, when I took the bills to Katie and presented them, she said, "You are over your budget for the year."
Oh,
And
that
I
sounds
said, "Well,
familiar."
is there any way that we might have some loose change yet in the budget that the CIC as a whole has not used?" I am $220.71 short, according to Katie, and I would like some support to pay off that balance, otherwise it comes out of my hide.
Is there still money in the overall budget, Katie?
Move approval.
A second.
Been moved and seconded to
Okay,
approve.
hold on.
Okay, Damon
Second
and Bob.
was Bob. Okay. Any discussion?
Where did you have those signs made?
Yeah.
We like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, they look like they'll last.
Yeah.
That was my goal, was not have to replace the signs or the standards. I also had a goal of having signs that were not necessarily able to be seen through on a double-sided sign. A lot of the signs that you see are done on it's a corrugated material made of vinyl, and if the sun is behind it, this will still shadow through somewhat, but not to the degree. I spent quite a few years in the sign business, so I have sources that may not come to bear. But when I was here last time, I had been working with sign companies within the city that typically would provide signs for people in our area. And I had talked to them, and they were not able to provide me what I was after. So I went to a company over off of Barber Boulevard, Signs by Tomorrow, and they were able to provide it and at a reasonable rate, and they gave me a discount on top of it. The frames I ordered through the internet from a company, I'm not even sure where they are, I think somewhere up in New England, and they shipped them, but I put the two together into a single unit. I wanted something, I didn't want those little narrow coat hanger styles of things that when you try to put them in the ground and they hit a pebble, they collapse.
Right.
So we have a lot of clay in our neighborhoods, and I wanted something I could spike into the ground. I had a contractor at the house who had a similar type of sign that he had made out, I think, east of Clackamas or Boring or somewhere out in there. And I was impressed with the sturdiness of the type of the sign, so that's what I went for.
So how much were they?
They were $111 a piece. So.
Boy, I'd love to have, wouldn't we like to have two for Kanema?
Okay, hold on. So a couple things.
There's
First,
a motion on the floor.
Yeah, there is a motion and a second on the floor. But before we go with that, I would ask that, I don't know why my thing keeps, I would ask that any neighborhood that's wanting to use city funds, go through me first. Come talk to me, let me know you're looking at these things. I usually order it, and then the bill goes directly to me, and we do it that way. We usually don't do a reimbursement type deal. So please talk to me first before you buy anything, because we can't ever guarantee that you're going to get reimbursed if you do it that way. So just a note out there. But now we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Are there other discussion with that before we take a vote? Okay, then let's go ahead and take a vote. Michael Berman?
Yes.
Paul Edgar?
Yes.
Amber Holbeck? Aye. Amy Wilhite?
Yes.
Tom O'Brien?
Yes.
Steve Anderson?
Abstain.
Okay. And Faith Leaf?
Yes.
Damon Maybe?
Yes.
Alice Watts?
Yes.
Bob LaSalle?
Yes.
Steve Van Haverbeek?
Yes.
Inger Rickenbach?
Yes.
Marianne Jensen?
Yes.
Todd Last?
Yes.
Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
All right. Next, Paul, anything?
Briefly, at this Wednesday's City Commission meeting, there's going to be the initial presentation made by Walter Macy on their conceptual ideas of Blue Heron. This is potentially the biggest deal, maybe one of the biggest opportunities or events that is at this first phase. And this is to give you an impression as to how this contractor is looking at the opportunity that's been put in front of them to help conceptualize where we go next with the site. So if anybody has any interest, come to the meeting or at least look at it on the internet, or however you can watch it from your home. But I believe that this is a very, very important event for the city, and this will give you the first insight into how it's going. So it really is going to require a lot of citizen involvement. I was on the selection committee, as you guys allowed me to be, to represent the CIC in selecting this particular company to do this job. And ironically, you know, again, when it happened, it was a unanimous vote of everyone that was on the selection committee to choose this this company to do it. So we're excited. I'm excited about the opportunity.
Thanks, Paul. Todd?
I was going to ask Tom if he was willing to find out if we get a discount if there are all the people that are interested in getting
Right,
signs.
I'll let him
We'll ask Katie that.
I'll be happy.
Katie, working through Katie.
I'll be happy to provide Katie with the sources.
We have the same problem that Tom has with our neighborhood, so those would be great.
Those would be great. We'd like that too.
So I'll try and be brief. Our last meeting, we had Metro and Community Development Director come out and talk about the issues of growth and density. It was a very interesting and educational talk. I don't know if Tony's ever going to come out and visit us again, because he kind of got grilled a lot. And the funny thing was, when you were talking about density and growth targets, it was like asking the police department if they have quotas for tickets. So anyway, I would encourage, even if you don't have a lot of growth in your area, I would encourage you to invite them. It was a very educational topic. Our next meeting is going to be on June 18th. We have an unknown developer that is proposing to annex property on 19568 McCord Road. Annex, rezone, and develop. And I have copies of the letter and the diagram if anyone's interested. If you want to see their presentation, that'll be on June 18th.
Where do you meet?
We meet at the Ainsworth House and Gardens at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Todd. Steve?
I'm expecting this to be my final meeting as the Park Place representative, because we've had elections, and Barbara Rinkin and Bob will be our new representatives, I think. Depends on whether it's confirmed. We have a PP&A steering committee scheduled for June 17th, where we need to make sure that all the T's are dotted and I's are crossed and everything. So the other thing that's happened in our neighborhood is we applied for a Metro enhancement grant for the Strait Pioneer Cemetery, and we received it. So we are going to go with developing the screening greenery with Jerry Herman and some volunteers from the high school to do the work. So we're looking forward to. Wow. It's great now that you can actually see the cemetery from the street. When they dropped the street 10 feet, made all the difference. So we're looking forward to doing that.
Great. David?
Well, one thing, I'm not sure Paul has a job anymore now that Two Rivers took over all our territory. So,
actually happened years ago, believe it or not.
But and then the other thing is I want to remind everybody that Thursday concerts in the park are starting up, and everybody should attend, and everybody should buy a snow cone. It's next Thursday, the 10th. Not in 2 days, but in a week.
It was July and August.
15th.
Okay, whatever. Doesn't
You got a
matter.
month,
Buy a snow
folks.
cone. We'll be there on the. We'll be there. We'll be there for the Carnegie celebration too. So.
The City Commission has declined to support us in our request to be reimbursed for insurance costs for officers of neighborhood associations. So if you feel you need the insurance, you're on your own. And my quest for that is over.
Thank you. Ingra?
Thank you for all the work.
Mary Jane? Well, okay. Well, my giddiness that I experienced earlier has gone away. It is now 9:30, and that concludes our meeting. Thank you all for coming and your attentiveness.
You had to say.